Hello, Revere, and welcome to our Revere Veterans Community Show. Today we have a special guest. He's a triple veteran of the community. He's a veteran of the military, a veteran of the police, and a veteran of the community. Let me welcome
Morris, thank
Jeremiah Goodwin, one
you.
of Revere's finest.
Thank you, sir.
Jeremiah, you are a police officer on the city of Revere. So let's start off by you talking about your education first.
Okay, I attended St. Lazarus over in East Boston, graduated from St. Lazarus Elementary and went on to Savio. After I had left Dominic Savio at 17, I had gone in the Air Force where I went to some pretty extensive training, police academies, and we also had some leadership schools and things of that nature, so that worked pretty good. Upon my completion of the military, I left and I went up to St. Francis, where I was accepted prior to even entering the military, which was a great experience. It's now the University of New England, and I had gone there and I got my bachelor's degree in arts and management. And from there I had gone off and worked a little bit with my family in the oil company and different odd jobs, construction, JBG construction, where I was selected by Bob Rufo, who was the Honorable Sheriff of Suffolk County. And I went in there and I went through their correctional training system. And after that I took a civil service exam where I went to the Revere Police Department and went to another police academy, and subsequent to that I went through the ranks and I've studied to be where I am right now. I'm a lieutenant in the Revere Police Department, as you know. And while I was actually in the department, I had gone back to school where I got my master's degree in criminal justice. And, I think it's been very helpful to, have that type of educational experience in order to be able to perform the functions of a good patrol supervisor or a good patrol commander.
You are a good patrol commander. And you're a credit to the city of Revere, too. But I got to ask you this here. Since you yourself are a veteran, why don't you tell the veterans that are out there, if they want to become police officers because they have their training, how to go about it?
Well, actually, thank God the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, in most cases, will give a veteran preference. So when I went, it was just this, you got a 2-point advantage on your overall scores. So, but presently, to become any type of civil service position, being a veteran is a very, very important thing because they have a preference. So they will actually, there'll be absolute preference. So I suggest anybody who is looking for a career in public service that, becoming a veteran, spending time in our armed forces is a great way not only to mature and grow, but it also gives you distinct advantages. While you're there, they're going to give you free education after you get out. They're going to pay for your college and give you housing.
You got the GI Bill.
I did. Thank God I had the GI Bill. It helped me to get through my, my tough years at St. Francis. But it's even better now. They have the post-911 veterans benefits that I just think it's just an incredible situation.
Can I ask you this, Jeremiah,
Sure.
if I may? Does it make any difference if you're a veteran in the military, police, the MPs, or the constabulary? Or let's say you were never in any of those two.
Yeah.
They still have the same preference as those two when they get out of the service?
Yes, all of them have that same preference. In fact, my oldest son, Jeremiah, who is a Boston police officer now, serving in Boston over in Jamaica Plain, he had actually quit school in the middle of 2 wars and enlisted in the Army Infantry. So when he got out, he took the civil service exams, and thank God for him, he's gone back to school since then. Picking up some college credits. So yes.
What are the qualifications? Let's say you didn't serve in the military at all.
Yes.
Do you need a high school diploma?
You do.
Oh,
you have to have a high school diploma.
That's minimum?
Yes,
minimum.
You have to have a high school diploma. And obviously, that's a very, very rigid testing cycle. It's a lot of logic and reasoning type of examination nowadays. So it's a difficult test. If you're trying to get on, you really have to have a high score, whether it's the fire department, police, or whichever area of civil service or public service that you decide to enter. But I think being a United States veteran does a lot for us. I think it helps us to grow at a young age. It's a stable environment, and it's great for a young man.
Right. And I would like to help the veterans out there, but more importantly, well, you do a lot for the veterans. If any veteran was looking to become a police officer and needs some information, could they contact you if they wish to?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm always open.
So why don't we do this? Can you give them a phone number, an
Sure.
email, or a cell phone?
Yeah, my phone number is 617-480-7323. I'll be happy to field phone calls. The only time that you won't get me is I'm sleeping. I turn the phone off. So, and I work a pretty different schedule. I work midnight to 8 and stuff. So
I'll be careful then.
yeah, yeah. But I'm a huge veterans advocate.
I know that.
My uncle Dougie, he was a Green Beret, and my family's represent every generation. We have members in our family that enlist in the military.
You got a great family. I mean, you have brothers that are on the police force.
Oh,
I know one of your brothers, Donnie Goodwin, who's a great man.
Yep. Yep. So, yeah, and we do have that. And, that's part of what we are as a family. I grew up in a house with 11 brothers and sisters, and I really worked hard.
6 brothers and 1 sister.
The minute I was, got old enough and get out of high school, it was time to go because it was just one less mouth that we had to feed. So
we have something very good in common, you and I, Jeremiah. We both went into the service, and we enlisted because we weren't drafted at age 17.
17. That's
and where
what
did you take your basic training, if I may?
I went to Lackland Air Force Base, and, there's a basic training course, and then from there I went to Wilfred Hall Academy, which is the training center for security police officers. From there I went to an air-based ground defense school, and I was a heavy weapons specialist where, I was a 90-millimeter recoilless rifleman. And, I got assigned to the 351st Combat Support Group, which was at Whiteman Air Force Base. And at the time, it was a very difficult thing. If you remember back during the Cold War, we had this philosophy of mutual assured destruction, and it was just incredible as a young man to realize that we didn't have any special thing to shoot down our nuclear missiles. So what we did there was we secured all of the nuclear weapons arsenals for Whiteman Air Force Base. And unfortunately, they never moved me because of my secret national security clearance, and we essentially went from single warheads on our Minuteman missile systems to multiple independently retargeted reentry vehicles.
I have to ask you this, if I may, because I'm a dummy when it comes to some of those things. Just recently, as you know, there was a Malaysian airplane shot down by a missile at about 34,000 feet.
Yes.
The Russians said they have a missile that goes 70,000 feet that they can shoot down a plane.
Yes.
When did all these missiles come into perfection? Because none of them were around the time when you were in the service.
Oh, when I was in, we did have a pretty good targeting system back then. It's obviously you've seen what we've done now with our JDAMs, different types of laser-guided systems, but they're pretty much GPS guided right now, and so it's certainly something that we've worked to make sure there's not a lot of collateral damage where innocent people become victims of any type of armed conflict, which is great. And that was a great thing for me when I was younger. Although there was some confliction with me afterwards, recognizing what I was doing, I never got to leave. And, that was the thing. Once you get into SAC, you never get out.
Right.
And the 351st Combat Support Group, which is now maintaining our most secret stealth bombers, the stealth bomber unit. That is the home for the stealth bomber units. And it's pretty remote. It's pretty desolate.
Did they perfect it wouldn't be stealth if they did, but now, did they perfect radar a little better so they can detect stealth?
Well, I mean obviously, I don't know what their countermeasures are as...
I mean, you could shoot out laser rays, and if the rays, interfere or move...
Yeah.
They could catch a moving object?
It's a deflection system. They try to, deflect the radar from being able to recognize
Well, I'll tell you, when you were in the service, when I was in the service at the end of World War II, I remember with the Russians when I would be talking to them, they had similar rockets. They called them the Katyushas, but they went horizontal. But those are almost the same going up in the air instead of going horizontally.
The old organ pipes.
Is that what they called them?
Yeah, the organ pipes,
Okay.
But, that was something in the past. I think I'm very glad that I did it. I was able to offer my service as a young man. And, like I said, even my whole family, I had my Uncle Dougie, one of my dearest uncles, that spent 7 tours in Vietnam, and he was a member of the combat.
7 tours?
Yes, he was a member. He was a Green Beret. He was in the Studies and Observation Group. And if anybody knows, those are the gentlemen that work closely with our nation's intelligence system. So he was a big influence on my life.
That's where I
amongst
was in
others.
the service in the military
Yeah,
intelligence, but
so-
only because I spoke language, not
Yeah.
because I had it up here.
Yes.
They just needed someone to speak for them.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to talk about your family a little. You got children, you got a wife.
I do. I've raised 3 children. They're all great. One is a
Tell us
Boston.
the names of what each one does.
I have Justin, Jerry, and Susie. Jerry's my oldest, who I'm very, very proud of that he followed in the family tradition of public service. He earned
He's in
it.
Jamaica Plain, you said?
He's in Jamaica Plain as a boss. He earned it. He did his time in the military. Nobody gave him anything. Nobody, can take that away from him. He
Nope.
earned it. So, which was great. And, it's funny because, let me just say, my son Justin is a member of the National Honor Society, just accepted to the STEM Academy. My daughter
Congratulations.
Susan is an honor roll student in Revere. She's got a big interest in forensic science, and she's a great, great kid.
She wants to be in the police too, I'm for it.
Well, I don't know. We don't
Excuse
know
me,
where she's going to
forensic.
go at this point, but she's very, very bright. She's very bright with mathematics and science and physics. It's just amazing what they teach the young kids, and I thank the city of Revere and the school system that we have here.
Well, we should. We got the best superintendent in this country.
Yes, we do. We have a great school system. So,
And we
yeah,
have a great ROTC there too. by
they
the
have a
way.
great ROTC. Yes, we do. That's big stuff.
And what about your missus?
That's Bia.
Yep.
Yep. She's she's the one that keeps me in line.
At least someone does.
Yeah.
Okay. That was good. So we can talk about that. Now, you're a real veteran advocate.
I am a veterans advocate, and
Let's tell us.
well, in fact, I'd probably blend a couple of topics here. 2009, I went over to South Korea, and I stayed up on the South Korean-North Korean border on an army camp, where I stayed for 6 weeks with the 2nd Infantry
Did you go over
Division.
as a civilian or as a
I
servant?
went over as a civilian. My son was there. I visited
Oh.
him. So there was a whole bunch of guys, and the detachment commander, where I was staying down in Weijambu, taking the train every day, he says, no, he put me on base right behind my son. So I stayed for 6 weeks with an infantry unit, hiked the hills with them and did a lot of good stuff. And I met some great, great Americans. I mean, just the finest men in the world. And there was one fellow with 3 children. He ended up coming back to Kentucky. My son's time was up. He ended up in Afghanistan, and he, had come back to Boston looking for a position. And this is why veterans need to be recognized more. So in the interim, he ended up applying for a position at the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department. Evidently, they don't recognize our veteran service, and he did not get the job. So with that, I looked at it and and I've always been that. I've always been a big, big advocate of it. I was a little disturbed. So part of my future is a result of my veterans advocacy. And that young man, Randy Wernig, is now living out in the Midwest, trying to make a living for his family, which is unfortunate. I think that happens to a lot of our guys. I think we need to employ our veterans at every opportunity. So
I agree with you on that
Yes.
there. And I got to mention a gentleman that I met because of you, Mr. David Valdez.
David Valdez.
How do you pronounce his name? sir?
Valdez. David
David
Valdez.
Valdez. He played for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
He did.
And him and I have something in common too, because I lived in Brooklyn when the Brooklyn Dodgers were there.
Right.
I believe they left
Right.
in 1957, if my memory
Yeah.
serves me correct.
And Dave is great. Now, obviously,
with the kids.
Great. With this what I'm doing now, I took a good long look as a result of that veteran not being hired, and I have entered the race, and I'm on the ballot for Suffolk County Sheriff.
Right.
So some of the things that I think are important surround guys like Dave Valdez, who is great with the children. He's a professional athlete, played for the Mets, played for the Mariners.
The Mets also?
And he has a criminal justice degree. So I've tapped Dave to come in as my community outreach person. And what that means is that one of the areas we want to focus on is neighborhoods where we have children at risk. Get them in there, get Dave, bring his machines in, run clinics, baseball clinics, have a couple of guys from the Sheriff's Department standing with them so the children can see when they're young that there is a different alternative than possibly entering into street life or anything of that
drugs
nature.
or criminal
And
activity.
Dave, that's the key thing, because the Harvard University study indicated that the best opportunity to change our community and have a cohesive value-oriented community is to have outreach programs focused at our at-risk youth. Dave, I think, is the greatest thing that we could possibly do at that sheriff's department in terms of our outreach programs. He's qualified, he's a good man, and you know what? He's bilingual, he's originally from Santo Domingo.
Right.
He lives here, he's an awesome opportunity. So, I mean, getting the right management team there is really important. I want to pack it with law enforcement specialists and depoliticize that type of thing. As I told you, I'm very upset about that young veteran not getting the job. So we need to depoliticize that area. And it needs to be open and equal access. I think, personally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have an outside agency, much like civil service, how I got my position, an outside agency handle the recruiting, testing, and retention programs at that sheriff's department to make sure that everybody has equal access and equal opportunity. And hopefully guys like Dave will encourage young men who would otherwise not even think about it enter into public service, because it's a great life, it's a rewarding life. And guys like him, like myself, will bring that leadership, will bring it forward and engage the communities. Also, obviously, you know, when we talk about this position I'm looking at, it is a position of care and custody. You know, we've got the pre-detention at Nashua, we have the post-sentencing detention. So, but we need to expand those a little further too. We need to make sure that the programs that we have here, like there's a Common Ground initiative at this point. I think it's superficial at best. So, you know, for instance, you get 21,000 hours on a 2.5-year sentence. They give them 400 hours of
community?
Well, you know, vocational training. I think we can do better than that. Bring a cause value education, much in the same system they had at my university, different levels of learning and bringing them up. And a central lockup. We have, how many times the City of Revere? The City of Revere just paid $2.5 million on a lawsuit because of an at-risk prisoner. So I want to be able to let the people know in this community, you got an at-risk prisoner, you will call that sheriff's department, and we will bring them right in, and we will take care of
Jerry,
that person.
As a layman, at-risk prison, could you explain that to me?
A lot of what we deal with really revolves around people who have medical conditions, whether it's mental illness, have some type of disorder, bipolar of some sort, or, believe it or not, we get a lot of narcotics cases where they're withdrawing from heroin or they have different communicable diseases, which places my offices at risk, which is very important. And they could be a suicide risk, and it's difficult because we as police officers in the City of Revere, we're not a medical unit. So when we have that system, we need to have a central lockup like the rest of the country has, where we bring those at-risk prisoners and get them in there, get the liabilities off the cities and towns, and we won't have to have officers watching them. And that'll put more officers on the street. So it's a win-win situation. It's a win-win for the families who worry about their loved ones, you know, for the mothers and everybody who have people in custody. It's a win-win situation. The city wins, the families win, and it's a doable thing, and that's an important part of what we're looking to do.
Right now, you know, I talk to a lot of people, and I say the best thing we could do, besides the police, is the citizens of the City of Revere. We got to be the eyes and ears for the police. If we see something that's wrong, report it to the police. You know, if you see something, say something.
That is the whole concept. When I first got on, it was more or less a response to people's calls. Since then, in the last 20 years or so, we've engaged in what we call this concept community policing, where we actually identify the stakeholders in the community, business, clergy, politicians, and actual neighbors, to let them be the police. Let them police themselves. If you got a problem, you call us.
Right.
If there's a broken window in an apartment building, the police will call. And we do this all the time, Morris. We make sure that the windows are fixed, there's no broken windows, and there's no things that may show that the area is being run down. So community policing is from the bottom up.
Right.
You people are the most important.
Right, and you know something else, Jerry? We have the mailman who goes around and delivers the mail. He could see what goes on almost at every house, and if he sees something suspicious, I'm sure they do something to help you too.
Mailmen are a great source of information for the police.
Exactly, but I want to say something about Crime Watch. We have two lovely ladies from the City of Revere, Stacy Rizzo and Joyce DiNuccio.
Yeah.
They were on our show yesterday. they are forming a crime watch on Ward 4, but they explain to the people how to do it. This
Yeah.
is what we like in
Well,
Revere.
I can tell you firsthand, recently I've been in Boston. I was over in Geneva Street, a section of Boston which is, you know, considered a high crime area, and I was with some of the superintendents, and we did what they call a flashlight walk, where we had 2 superintendents, the captains, commanders, everybody, and we walked the neighborhoods. We literally walk by, say hello to everybody, and you address their problems. Those are some of the initiatives that work because we're engaging the community. That's the most important thing. The City of Revere and the chief is doing great things. He's got the Citizens Police Academy.
Pepperelli?
Yes, he's got that police academy going, and Lieutenant O'Hara is really working hard to keep everybody informed, to keep them to really know what we are. We're a law enforcement agency, and we want to make sure that the people are comfortable. I'll be honest with you. I think I have the greatest group of officers that you could ever ask for. Once in a while you get a little guy over there that's, but eventually they don't last long. But I got to tell you, we have the greatest group of guys that work there, very dedicated.
When I was a little boy, going to public school, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if a police officer would grab your hand and walk you across the street, it was like being in heaven, you know?
I'd be afraid if I ever got in trouble with the police. I remember
never
we were
got in
younger.
trouble with the police.
You know, you broke a window or something, and they brought you home. You're in trouble twice because the police officer, and then your parents got you when you got home. In the good old core value days, the family values
We used to look
day.
forward when they would come up to our school and
Yeah.
speak about, you know,
Yeah.
and in those days, we didn't have what we have today. Like there wasn't heavy on drugs, weren't
gotcha.
heavy on crime.
Yeah.
But we did have the police come in and talk about how to be good kids and to obey our parents.
We are still like that. We're still a community-based organization, all police. I can assure you in Suffolk County, we have a very, very professional group of guys. And I'm very, very proud of my guys in my district. I'm even more proud in attending all the neighborhood watches over in Boston and seeing how we engage the community. It's fantastic.
I would like to say your son Jeremiah, you say he's a police officer
Yes.
in Jamaica Plain?
Yes, he is.
I go to Jamaica Plain, the VA. So Jeremiah, if I ever see you or you see me, thank you for your service.
Yeah. And you know, that brings me to where I'm at. You know, obviously the veteran advocacy is great, and I looked at this position that I'm running for in the Sheriff's Department. And, you know, I'm just simply offering a choice. You know, do me a favor. Look at all of us. Have them look. You know,
How many are running? Excuse me, how many are running?
There's 3.
Oh, 3.
There's myself and 2 other opponents. One of them is a perennial candidate from Boston. The second one is a political appointment from New York, who really doesn't have any experience in law. In fact, he doesn't have any experience in law enforcement whatsoever. He's essentially an administrator. And that's what I say to people. I says, well, you know what? We do have a choice. And when I speak to people around the district, I say to them, look, we have a professional choice or a political choice. You know, I draw off 30 years of law enforcement experience. I draw off a life of public safety. You know, I was the leadership team from the time I was 19. I'm still continuing in that path. So we're just simply saying, take a look at all of us. We've got a professional choice and we have a political choice. And that's how I see it. And I think people are understanding that we need to have in a very important law enforcement position at the Sheriff's Department. We need a law enforcement specialist. And the guys that I'm bringing in, can't let it out yet, Morris.
Okay.
But we have top-notch quality police managers on tap, ready to go in there and make the difference.
Right. Before we continue,
Sure.
I said you were a triple veteran when you started the show. Military, police, and community.
Yes.
We usually give this to veterans of the military, but I'm not going to give you 3 flags, but I'm going to give you one that represents 3. This is for your service to our country, for your service to our city, and for your service to the community.
Morris,
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. This is the greatest symbol of freedom in the
Now
entire...
I got a little surprise.
The greatest symbol of freedom in the world.
I agree with you. Now I got a little surprise for you.
Okay.
I was mentioning to the good diner down the street, this beer, that I have a veteran coming on the show, and he said to me, I got something, because he does so much for the veterans in the city and the community. So he gave me a couple of gift certificates, and he says, give them to whoever you want. I says, well, the first veterans that come on,
Okay.
that's the ones that are going to get them. You're the first ones that come on, so I'll say this again. As a triple veteran, military, police, community, Here's a little gift certificate from the Good Diner and Sabir.
Oh, the Good Diner, Sabir.
Yep.
Sabir does a lot for this
And he's
community.
yeah.
People don't know this, you know. He gives out hundreds and hundreds of meals to
Right.
people, senior citizens. He
Like
also
a-
will go to the Congressional Church.
Church.
I know at one point he was
VFW
giving
too.
500 meals to people who otherwise wouldn't have them.
And
And
Sabir,
he's a great, great guy.
and I want
know
to say
Sabir.
this to Sabir, if I can. Sabir,
Yeah.
if you're listening out there, thank you, because you come from a foreign country, Egypt. You've been an American citizen for 20-some-odd, 23 plus years, or maybe 24. Thank you for coming to our great country. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you, Sabir.
And thank you, Sabir. I appreciate it. We'll be getting some more iced coffee and something down there. Thank
Okay.
you very much, sir.
Now, Jerry, we have about 3.5 minutes left. I'm going to give you 2.5 or 3/4 to do whatever you
Okay.
want to talk about.
Well, essentially, I'd like to talk about the Sheriff's Department.
Go right ahead.
And one of the reasons why, it's because it's important. Because the Sheriff's Department is not a penal institution. And by word of it, it's the House of Corrections. So I feel that the educational programs that I want to bring and the work-related programs I want to bring, as well as health care for them, as well as the job placement program, and post-release tracking is very, very important. And that's a delicate balance, because we do have victims, and we never want to forget the fact that being a good sheriff is a balance between restorative justice as well as rehabilitative models of
The ones that
of
get out of the House
corrections.
of Correction, what is the return ratio? Do you know if
Well, you know, some people tout that around. I feel that it's very high. It's between 43 and 46% right now.
That is
So
high.
almost 1 out of every 2 are going back there. And I think that is a function of education. Core family values are important. We're going to institute things that give them the tools to get back out. We want to initiate some financial literacy classes. We want to institute some parenting classes, and we want to institute, you know, domestic violence awareness. And we'll give them to them in the form of a booklet. And I worked the old Charles Street Jail. I worked there. I walked the tears.
Are you
I
kidding?
know, for lack of a better word, this nonsense goes on for a long time. You want to go to the gym? Okay, here's your informational packet. It's going to take you 2 hours a day, and each and every day we'll keep them busy. And then we'll move them on to their curriculum for reading and core curriculum courses. And from there, we'll move them along to some sort of job training, get them ready to be released, build their self-esteem, and that way the victimization rate will be lowered again. That's the most important thing here. We need to realize that we need to get them better so we don't have any more victims, and it's expensive.
I know that.
We need to reduce that rate
What is the
because
cost
you're
per,
paying for it.
prisoner?
You know,
approximately?
there's different areas. You know, in Texas, for instance, they have programs. It's actually a profit. They actually make a profit on their prison. But here in Suffolk County, I would say you're probably in the area of 45.
How do you make a profit on your prisoners?
Well, they have them working. They do
Oh,
different
okay.
programs. Yes, but in Suffolk County, it's about $45,000 to $50,000 per person
A year?
for each individual. Yes, and you know, we need to
That's
do
a
that.
lot
We
of
need to
money.
make sure when they're in custody, first of all, they're safe, and second of all, we educate them.
Right. Jerry, we're out of time, but I want to say thank you for coming on the show. God bless you.
Morris, it's my pleasure to be here. I love this community. I've been here my whole life, and
Right.
thank you very much.
God bless our troops, the city of Revere, the people of Revere, but most of all our great country, the United States of America, and thank you for listening. And today we did have a special guest, a 3-time veteran of the community, military, and police, and thank you for your service.
Morris, thank you very much. I do appreciate being here. I love this place. Never
Right.
moving out of it.
I salute you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.